Well, hello there, and thank you for joining us here at Coolest Life. My name is Tony, and I'm here to take you through, like the caption says, what does it cost to be a Mason? Then we'll talk about a couple different things. I may talk about time-wise, just a muy poquito. That's the length of my Spanish that I know. And I'm going to talk about the actual monetary cost to be a Mason and some of the different organizations and what it can cost. So I'm going to expound this. This video just might be a little long, and if you're interested in becoming a Mason, that way you know what you're getting into. And if you're already a Mason, it might open your eyes to some of the organizations and might allow you to slow the roll just a little bit. So come on and join us, because you just entered the Coolest Life, Masonic Edition. So when we talk about Masonry in general, we're talking about extracurricular activity, kind of like Masonry at first. Let's just say this, get this out there really quick, is a fraternity. It is not a religion. It is not a religion. It is a fraternity. I will say this, we probably pray more than most social organizations do. I didn't say fraternities. Well, I would say probably most fraternities also. And when you compare it to a fraternity, if you would ask anybody in a college fraternity, the majority of them will say, yes, they have an altar. Yes, they have a Holy Bible on it. Yes, this is true. I know I'm a member of Tau Kappa Epsilon, which is headquarters out of Indianapolis, and they've got 200,000 members worldwide, or maybe 300,000. And we have that. We have an altar and everything. A lot of it comes from Masonry. They tell me that Kappa Sigma fraternity has a lot like Masonry. They say it's all but plagiarism as far as their rituals and things that they do. Anyway, that being said, I want to talk to you about the cost of Masonry, which we get back on track. If you consider it to a pastime, as something that you do, golf. Does golf take time? Yeah. Is golf expensive? Yeah. If you play 1 day a week, golf will cost you more than what it costs you to be involved in Masonry. No question. Easy. Yes. Yes. 1 day a week. It's going to cost you what it would cost you for dues in Masonry. Comparison, my college fraternity, when I was in, cost me $80 per month for dues. Not per year, but per month. So you multiply that out, it can be very expensive. Now, you can basically only be in a college fraternity as long as you're still in college. So, eventually it's going to run out, and then you'll be paying alumni dues if you want to stay connected or grounded, or if there is an alumni association or anything like that. So let me get this phone turned around. I'm going to show you my computer, which I got sitting right over here. And I've got some numbers I got broken down, and I want to show you how they line up and how things somewhat cross, but really they're separate. So let's do that right now. All right, so follow along with me and don't jump ahead. I'm going to do my best to keep this phone level, because it is actually just basically pointing at my computer. Like you can see my hands right here. So I'm behind here trying to drive a little bit. I want to make sure I don't bump this table or anything like that. Now, getting started, you see right here at the lodge. Now, none of the rest of these matter until you are a member of a lodge. You cannot get in the shrine unless you're a member of the lodge. As we scroll down just a smidge, you cannot get in the Scottish Rite unless you're in a lodge. You cannot be in New York Rite unless you're in a lodge. You cannot join any of these other organizations I have down here unless you're part of a lodge first. Okay, so that's what we call Blue Lodge. There are some red lodges. I will say this, my background. I am in a lodge. In fact, I've been the master of a lodge and or the president of a lodge of 2 different lodges in Columbus, Georgia. And I have traveled to 26 different jurisdictions as of this video. It's going to go up by the next 12 months. I assure you, probably by 8 at least. So I've been in 26 jurisdictions, and this is what I found. The majority of these numbers are coming essentially from my experience in some of these organizations from the state of Georgia. Now, there are these organizations in other states, and their dues can vary. It's not going to vary very much, okay? It's not like $1,000 difference or anything like that. So they're going to be pretty close. but I want to show you a couple of these to begin with. So here that you see is lodge. Now this is your first step in Masonry. These others are secondary organizations. So in the lodge, it's going to cost you $75 typically. It does vary again, but I will say it will cost you about $75 to become an inner apprentice, $75 to get initiated as a fellow craft, and $75 to get your master's. So that's why I said 75 times 3. Some it might be $50. Some it might be 75 for the first one, 25 for the next after that, 75 for the first one, $50 for ones after that. So it can vary. Dues. Dues can vary also state to state, jurisdiction to jurisdiction, lodge to lodge. You're across town from one lodge. I'll say this. I'm in Columbus, Georgia, and I know one lodge of the 5 lodges in that one county, all in the same jurisdiction. One lodge is $100 a year. Okay, another one might be $60 a year. Other is $95 a year. So you can see it can vary just in that area right there. I've been to other lodges where their dues was $150 in different states. That doesn't mean the lodge across town is $150. It means their dues is $150. So this can vary, but it kind of gives you an idea. This is not a month. This is a year. So that should be comforting. Not like my college fraternity, which is a lot more. Now, you can get involved in the shrine. Shriners, you've heard of Shriners, hospitals, and everything. Most people are more familiar with Shrine than they are any other organization within Masonry. They're familiar with the Shrine. So my initiation run me $100, and from then on out, it's $115 per year. Now, there are organizations within the Shrine that you can join. I was a member of the Clowns. The Clowns, our dues were $25 for initiation, and we didn't have any yearly dues. That doesn't mean that every clown unit in other jurisdictions in the state of Louisiana don't have a clown dues, because they might. It might be like $50 or something. They got groups called director staff, hillbillies, auto clubs, the jesters, and more. There's lots of. I was in one shrine and they had 13 different organizations within their shrine. Others might have 4. It just depends on the organization. You also might have clubs associated with the shrine. Like if your shrine is in Minneapolis and I live halfway across the state, we might have a club that's associated with the shrine in Minneapolis. So therefore you might have club dues. And I highlighted the auto clubs down here because the auto clubs, a lot of times that $300, for example, might be your car. They might have 4 or 5 different cars. Let me say this again. They might have 8 cars in the auto club. And the auto clubs are those little cars that ride back and forth. They're real small. They could be Model A's, Dusters. There's no telling what they are. Might be race cars, but they're normally some type of go-kart. And the auto clubs will take a little higher dues. The ones in outside Shrine are called the Scat Cats. So they'll have their own organization. Or there might be an auto club of people that have convertibles. Those might be a little less as far as dues go, but the ones that you actually drive a little go-kart, they give you a go-kart. They have go-karts. I know mine I think they had 12, and only 8 of them were being used because that's all the members they had that were active. So you pay the $300, but you get assigned a go-kart. Basically, you're responsible for changing the oil, fixing it, making sure it runs, buying tires for it. That's part of the I guess the expenses that go along with that. They might help you with some of those expenses. However, it's still your responsibility to make sure it happens, to make sure your car is fully functional. So that would be your auto clubs here. Jesters. Jesters is an organization. It is invitation only. The rest of these, you can basically go up to them and ask to be a member. That's what these are. Most of these organizations within the Shrine. Jesters is invitation only. Only about 10% of Shriners are even asked to be a part of the Jesters. And part of it is because they kind of check you out and make sure that they think you can afford it. If you're paying other dues at other organizations like your Blue Lodge, and you're in 5 Blue Lodges or whatever, because you can join more than one Blue Lodge in most jurisdictions. I do say most because not all can you be a member of several lodges, but most you can. They want to make sure you can afford the $350 initiation and the $300 per year dues. Maybe you can, maybe you can't, but that's between you and your spouse or whoever that will decide that. But it can be expensive. And also, jesters tend to want you to do out-of-town trips once a year or even every other year to go to their main court meeting. And some of these others somewhat require it too. Scottish Rite. Scottish Rite is probably the second best known organization in Shrindom. If you go into an area, a large city, more than likely you're going to find 3 organizations there associated with Masons. You're going to find the York Rite, the Scottish Rite, or the Shrine, if not all of them. So that's real common. Scottish Rite is going to cost you $110 thereabouts initiation fee, and then $100, maybe to $150 per year dues. And then, of course, there's a group called Knights of St. Andrew. Knights of St. Andrew are typically your first area, which are your black hats. Not everyone that is a black hat is a Knights of St. Andrew, but to get initiated in most Knights of St. Andrews that I've ever seen, you must be a black hat. You can't be a red hat or a white hat. Say you transferred in from somebody else, you want to join Knights of St. Andrews, you can't. There are some honorary organizations, or I'm actually a red hat, which is also known as the KCCH. Knights Court of Honor. They are Knight Commander Court of Honor. They the KCCH. They are red hats. They are not leadership positions in the Knights of St. Andrew, nor can they be. They're supposed to be essentially aged out. But that is a $300 initiation fee. But there's no real meetings for the most part for KCCH like there are Knights of St. Andrew. You're just recognized as a red hat. And the 33rd. And let me say something about this one here. Boy, this always rubs me the wrong way. A lot of times you will hear people say, well, I know so-and-so, he's a 33rd degree Mason. Well, guess what? There is no such thing as a 33rd degree Mason. It does not exist. There is a such thing as a 33rd degree Scottish Rite Mason. See the Scottish Rite here? It's an organization within Scottish Rite. There is no such thing as a 33rd degree Shriner, and there is no such thing as a 33rd degree person in the Blue Lodge, in the regular lodge. No such thing. It doesn't exist. Okay? So understand that. When you talk about 33rd degree, you are talking about Scottish Rite. Okay? You're talking about this Scottish Rite here. All right. So now we're done with that. One day, hopefully I'll be a 33rd degree. Everyone who's in Scottish Rite, who's been in a few years and is active, wants to be a 33rd. It is an honorary to be there. Great example. To be in the KCCH, to be a member of this KCCH, you have to be you have to be a Shriner for a Shriner. You have to be in Scottish Rite for at least 5 years before you get eligible to be a KCCH, because it is an honorary only, invitation only. After that, you have, in most jurisdictions, in order to be a 33rd, you had to have been a KCCH at least 4 years before you're eligible to be a 33rd. So 9 years is about the quickest anyone would ever become a 33rd. That's once they join Scottish Rite. Not once they join the Blue Lodge, but once they join Scottish Rite. But you can see how those costs can add up really quick. And I will tell you this, anyone who gets selected to be a 33rd degree, if there are a KCCH, you cannot be a 33rd without having been a KCCH first. So it's a progression. But any of these guys here, they'll cough up $500 in less than 24 hours if they ever got nominated to be a 33rd. It's that kind of honor. Okay, so again, no such thing as a 33rd degree Mason, but there is such thing as a 33rd degree Scottish Rite Mason. York Rite. Essentially, there's 3 main organizations in York Rite. There's a chapter, council, commandery. And that's typically how you join them. There's an initiation fee, $60 each, $40 fee per year, $35. Those fluctuate depending on your jurisdiction. They can, as much as double their price. Okay. Commandery. I'm going to say something about commandery. Commandery is a Christian-only organization within York Rite. It is the only organization that I know of in all of Masonry that requires you to claim Christianity. In order to be a Mason up here at the top, you do not have to be a Christian. And some people say, well, you guys are just Satanists. Well, you know what? There just might be some Satanists that are in Blue Lodge. It's very possible, because the only requirement, the primary requirement in a Blue Lodge to be a Mason is that you have to believe in a higher power. You can't believe in 9,000 different gods. You have to believe in in one God. That God in your mind just might be Satan. I don't know. Quite frankly, I've never met any that claim Satanism. I will say most of them here in the U.S. claim Christianity. There are several that I know that are Jewish. There's several that I know are claims Mormonism. Methodist and Baptist and Pentecostal and all that. But and most are Christianity, which is why when you go into a Blue Lodge, you find the Holy Bible on the altar and no other version of a biblical text there. But they can be, and if a brother from that is a Muslim, they can put a Quran on the holy altar next to the Holy Bible in the U.S. Yes, it's very common to do that. No problems there. So my point there is, this organization here, you can be any as long as you believe in a higher power. You cannot be an atheist or agnostic. We don't take atheists that don't believe, and we don't take agnostics who are basically fence setters. They don't believe or they don't not believe. But you have to believe in a higher power. Doesn't have to be Christ, though. And that would be the same for Shrine. Shrine, you don't have to claim any of that because they already know you're a Mason. So that you don't have to claim to be any kind of religion. And Scottish Rite, same thing. You don't have to claim any kind of religion, any particular religion. York Rite goes that way, except for Commander. Commander, you must be a Christian. As a matter of fact, on their hats that they wear, they have a Christian cross. So you must be a Christian in order to be that organization, which is why it's always kind of strange to me why they think some groups will get bad press. Oh, they're Satanists. It's kind of funny because we have one that actually requires you to believe in Jesus and to be a Christian in order to be a member. Anyway, I digress. There's also organizations within York Rite that are invitation only. I believe Red Cross of Constantine is invitation only. Once you're a member of York Rite, and when you're a member of York Rite, you have to be a member of chapter council, and then you are eligible to be a member of the rest of these. York Rite College, all of these groups meet. They might meet these groups here meet like once a quarter. They might meet and discuss things about the belief system within York Rite College and within the Allied Masonic degree. So they all kind of have their own. Some are more into research. Some are more into just history of Masonry in general. Then there are other organizations you probably heard of. Probably the most popular one is Eastern Star. Eastern Star was an organization that was started by the ladies of Blue Lodges, because the ladies want to be Masons, but in the United States, you're not allowed to have women as Masons. I hear some other countries have allowed that, but in the U.S. predominantly, and I have never seen it, out of the 26 jurisdictions I've sat in, there are no women in Masonry. There are some in Eastern Star. Eastern Star is a Masonic organization. You do not have to be a Mason to be an Eastern Star. Okay? You're supposed to be either related to one or... but I think they've even dropped that. I think that as far as ladies go, any lady can be in Eastern Star, and does not, like, if your mother was an Eastern Star, and although you've got no Masons in your family. The other thing about Eastern Star, I don't know of any males that are in Eastern Star that are not in the Blue Lodge, the regular lodges. So that may be a requirement for them. I'm not a member of Eastern Star. There's also, I found from other jurisdictions, an organization called the Grotto. They call themselves the partiers of the whole lot that we just talked about here. But I will say that most people says, who are the partiers of Masonry? That everybody says the Shrine. But the Grotto will challenge that, let me say. And these are some of the Grotto is not real big in Georgia, my home state, but there are some states that Grotto is large. North Carolina, Florida. It's pretty common to find a Grotto. Order of the Amaranth isn't really all that common. It's probably the next one I've probably seen. Tall Cedars. I actually joined Athelstan when they first chartered here in Georgia years ago. I have since demitted. If you're not doing something with it, it's nice to support it if you want to stay a member. But if you're not doing something with it, I can't see paying dues to organizations that I don't attend their meetings. But there are several more that I'm missing out here. Different, as I mentioned, Grotto is one of those that they're not real strong in the state of Georgia, but there are other states. But there are some that I didn't mention here that are in other states that aren't here. There's also another women's organization I want to mention that is part of the Shrine, and they're called Daughters of the Nile. Is pretty common. I think there's one other one. escapes me now. I can't think of. But Daughters of the Nile. Daughters of the Nile are 100% women. There are no males in Daughters of the Nile. And when it comes to ladies being in Masonry, the Eastern Star, the ladies, per their bylaws, are still the ones in charge. The worthy grand matron is the one in charge for the state. Okay, the worthy grand patron is her husband. He's basically the first man. Okay, there is no first lady in Eastern Star. It is the Eastern Star worthy grand matron, and after that, so there are organizations like that help include it. And of course, I didn't even mention the Order of the Demolay and Rainbow Girls. Those are for people that Rainbow Girls are just that, and Demolay are called the Demolay Boys. They are not members of the lodge. Sort of. In most lodges, you must be 18 years old and you have to be a male. So obviously none of the Rainbow Girls are members of a lodge. However, the Demolay Boys, who was named after Jacques Demolay, a man that was a York Rite member that history tells us was burned at the stake for his beliefs. He stuck to his guns for his beliefs and would not condemn his organizations he was with. So the organization is called Demolay, is named after him, but it is a boys' organization. You can be as young as, I think, 12 is when they have squires, and then they have a state organization and they get together and they basically do Masonic things, like they have rituals. And rituals is kind of a bad word. It's really not. Rituals is basically a way of doing things historically, basically how you open. What are the things you say when you open a lodge of Master Masons or of Demolay Boys, or certain things you say to make sure the door is secured. You verify that everyone in there is qualified to be there. Stuff like that. It's how you go about your business in the meeting is basically ritual is what it is. It's not any more secretive than that. And that's pretty much it. So that's what it costs you to be a Mason and be involved. And you can see there can be a lot to it. Well, I hope I brought you some more light. That's what we like to say. When you learn things in Masonry, we say we've given you more light. We brought you light so you can kind of understand how the organization works. And hey, send this to your friends who might be considered becoming Masons, or even if they're brand new Masons and they want to learn more about the organizations to find out more that, hey, there is a cost involved. It's just not time, it's money. I will say, like when I first joined, I joined the Shriners, and I joined the Shrine Clowns, and then I joined Scottish Rite, and then I ended up joining York Rite, and they all have dues, and all of them meet every month. So it can cost you some time. Each of our meetings is going to take an hour, hour and a half, and typically most of our meetings we eat before then. Anytime we have a dinner in a Masonic meeting, I will say most jurisdictions will allow you to bring your wife to, or your kids to, and they can eat also. You always want to let them know ahead of time so that make sure there's enough food, unless you're bringing your own. But they're welcome to, anyone's welcome to come to dinner. And some meetings, like I know our Scottish Rite is actually open to anybody to attend. Whether you're a Scottish Rite member or not, you can come and attend. My wife has attended lots of Scottish Rite meetings with me. I will say this, if we're doing degree work, if we're doing initiation, no, they're closed, or what we call tiled. We keep anybody from coming in to those meetings. And if they do come into the meetings and we're having a meeting, and we need to go vote on something and have a discussion about a vote, we will ask anyone who is not a member to actually leave the room and go in the other room and sit in the kitchen or something. But typically our Scottish Rite is, with our programs that we have, is typically we invite others to be there. So hope that answers some questions that you may have had about Masonry and about the other organizations, and basically how much it costs, time and money. There's a little bit of both. But no more than any other hobby or any other fraternity in college or anything else would require. But I hope you enjoyed this video. Be sure to send this to your friends. Be sure to like and subscribe. I'm going to let you go because I need to get back out here living the coolest life. Masonic edition.